This is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast, hosted by Roman Prokopchuk, bringing you all things digital marketing, tech, business, and motivation. What's stopping you from becoming relentless in all aspects of life? Are you ready to become a digital savage? Let's get into today's episode.
Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience Podcast. Today I have with me Suzan Hixon. Suzan is a trademark attorney and brand name creation strategist. She helps businesses and entrepreneurs create beautiful brand names for their products and services. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Roman.
My pleasure. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you kind of get started?
Wow. Okay. Well, I was born in a quaint town. No, I'm kidding. I won't go all the way back to that era, but I'll start after having graduated from law school, which was just about 15 years ago. So I've been practicing law for a while. I started out in patent prosecution. So I've always been a patent or an IP attorney, but I started out specifically in patent work. And that area was a little boring and slow for me. So I evolved into trademark law after about a year and a half of practice. And it was much better fit for me. So trademark law is, when you work primarily with people who are in the marketing space. So I worked at a large law firm. So I've been there, kind of done that in the big law firm world where you're just kind of a cog in a big machine. And I think it's great experience and I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to work as a slave in a big law firm. I feel like it's a good way for people to sort of cut their teeth and you learn a lot. I mean, you're a little bit of a whipping boy or girl, but it is a great way to learn the law, right? But at the end of the day, I knew deep down I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So after practicing in the big law firm world, I went solo. And it was quite an experience, and it has been quite an experience, but when you're in a situation where you are not doing the marketing, or, when you go from a law firm to a solo practice or a boutique, then you're doing marketing, then you're doing advertising, then you're practicing law, right? So you're wearing a lot of different hats. And I recently wrote down sort of an organizational chart for my own boutique law practice, just to kind of get an idea of everything that, is going on in my own practice. And it's still, even though it's small, it's still very analogous to that big law firm. But as a solo, you're kind of doing everything. And I'm finally getting to the point in my own practice, and I'm very thankful for this, that I am starting to find other people for these other roles within my practice to help me. So this current stage that I'm at, and understand, this was 15 years condensed into about 3 minutes. But my current sort of incarnation of my practice is that it's the private label law boutique. And what we do is we really help clients create long-term wealth with their private label products. And I really work a lot with people who are in the private label industry. And I help guide them through the complexities of the legal landscape so that they can grow their own private label businesses securely and confidently on a daily basis. So even though I'm a trademark attorney by experience, and that's my expertise, trademark law itself is it's kind of just a sliver of the whole pie of the private label world. And private label, just so your listeners know, and they might be like, oh, that's actually what I'm doing. But private label is when people kind of create their own brand, or maybe they already have their own brand, and then they import products that have sort of already been created. Of course, a lot of people will make minor changes to those products, and then they'll import them, and then they'll sell those products under their own brand names.
Okay, so it's kind of like a white label thing, and you rebranded under your company in a way.
Correct.
Now, what are some of the kind of considerations you see in those processes? Why might a company need you and your services, or like what are the kind of heartaches that having a great trademark attorney focusing on this helps avoid?
Yeah, that's a really great question. One of the biggest issues that I see in this space is creating proper brand names for those products that they're importing. And this primarily applies to people or businesses who haven't already created their brand names. So it's one of those areas that I feel like is often overlooked. And people don't realize the importance of strong trademark creation. And just a little sidestep here, Roman, when I say trademark, that's equivalent to a brand name. So sometimes I use those interchangeably, trademark and brand name. But they don't really realize the importance of doing that brand name creation in a really thoughtful way until they get a cease and desist letter from someone, right? Or they're like, oh, I need to have a good brand name so I can enroll it on Amazon's brand registry program, because they're also selling their products on Amazon, which is what a lot of people are doing who do private label. They might have their own e-commerce site, but they're also selling their products on third-party channels such as Amazon or Jet or even Etsy. So then they're like, oh, I need to have a trademark that really sets me apart, or one that's strong. Or like I said, or they're on that receiving end of a demand letter because maybe they didn't do that clearance search at the very beginning. So what I really love to do is I love to work with people in this space who are at the early stages of product, kind of figuring out what product they want to sell, because I can help them create a really great trademark that's going to be amazing from both the marketing and the legal perspective. And again, that process, and people can do this on their own, and it really isn't rocket science, but there are some really important considerations. And that's why I say that I think it's important to do it with thought, right? Like, some people will create a trademark by sort of describing the underlying product. And that's very dangerous because, first of all, it's very difficult to ultimately get that trademark registered. And then second of all, it's really hard to distinguish yourself from everyone else, because guess what? Everyone else should get to describe their product the very same way. So I see that a lot, where people want to kind of describe their product. Now, by the flip side of that, there are people that think that if they just throw out a bunch of Scrabble pieces and select some consonants and vowels and kind of have like this crazy coin term, that's going to be a great trademark as well. But there are some marketing concerns when they do, they create a trademark via that strategy as well. So it's really important to find that balance. Like, there is a nexus there of great trademarks that can be strong from not just the legal perspective, but also the marketing perspective. And I think that it's becoming more and more important to really find that nexus, because there are a lot of trademarks out there, right? Like, we're kind of bombarded by brand names like on an hourly basis. So you want trademarks that are unique and distinctive and not descriptive, and those that can ultimately get registered, because I tell people who are in this space that with trademarks, you get a lot of bang for your buck because it's not that expensive to get a registration. And it's one of those assets that will actually increase in value over time. So your tangible products might ultimately rust away or end up in a landfill, right? Or your tangible products might evolve, but your brand name can actually increase in value over time. And an example of that could be Harley Davidson, right? That brand name is a very famous and valuable brand name. And I don't know this for sure, but I could argue that the value of that brand name itself may be higher than all of the tangible products that Harley Davidson owns. They do a ton of licensing. So trademarks are one of those assets that can be utilized for additional streams of revenue for your business, such as by licensing. And I think that people kind of overlook that. So it's important. So when you're when you're starting a business, please don't undervalue the importance of your trademark. Create that trademark thoughtfully and really, appreciate the value that's inherent in it and understand that value itself, can actually grow over time. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think, I guess doing it the right way to begin with can, lead to that exponential value of it and avoid a lot of headaches in terms of lawsuits and things of that nature.
Yes. And it's, my mantra is it's less expensive to be proactive than reactive. And, it's so true when it comes to trademarks. So just go through that process of creating that trademark, thoughtfully. And when you think that you found this trademark that you love, try not to fall in love too much with it yet, but I understand if it happens, it happens. But, do those clearance searches before actually putting it to use and before filing it. Those clearance searches are really important. People can do them on their own. You can outsource it. You can have an attorney do it for you. But that just increases your confidence level as you proceed. And when you start using the trademark, just be conservative in initial amounts of money that you spend in marketing, and then just slowly increase those expenditures as your confidence level in that trademark increases. And that can only happen over time. You're not going to have a Harley Davidson or a Coca-Cola or an Apple overnight. And you probably won't have it in 2 years. But, the goal is to ultimately increase the value of that brand name. And it really just happens over time.
Yeah, I agree. So what motivates you to succeed?
What motivates me to succeed? Well, I am a big advocate of having a work-life balance. And I know it's a little cliche, but when I was a cog in the big law firm machine, I had absolutely no work-life balance. I was working 12 hours a day, and I was at my desk a lot. I wasn't not only did I not have a lot of time balance, I also wasn't really away from my desk that much. And so ultimately, when I started my own practice, I said it's going to be very important to me to have more of a work-life balance because I have to have control over my time. And as I have ultimately manifested my own practice and designed it the way that I want it to be, and I've felt that goodness of having the work-life balance, like, oh, guess what? I can leave the office at 3 if I haven't scheduled a meeting or something and go for a run, or I can go have a little ice cream social with my niece and nephews, at that time, after school, having that, the taste of that has actually motivated me to continue improvements within my practice. And the way that I've created my practice didn't happen overnight. I was working very hard when I first started my law firm, and I still work hard, but I'm very thoughtful in how I structure my time. And seeing that and the benefit that having the work-life balance and, being able to do these actions, like maybe spend some time meditating, working out, those types of things really help me in my practice as well when I'm actually working, because I can focus, right? Like I know that I can focus for 2 to 4 hours. If you are in your, if you're creating your business and you are not allowing yourself that time to also play, really, I think it hurts you from a work perspective. That balance is so important. And being able to talk with people and help them create, a work environment where they can work hard when they're there, but they allow themselves that time, that motivates me also. I love helping other people succeed in their own practices, whether or not, they're building their own kind of boutique practice as well, because I've worked with other attorneys to help them do this, or, other types of businesses. That motivates me, honestly, seeing other people succeed, but without slaving away, every single day, because I know it can happen. And I think that as we progress as a society, that people really are, they're starting to realize, you know what, maybe I don't care about that corner office so much. You know what, working 12 hours a day is not a badge of honor. It's, people realize that, working maybe 5 hours a day and making it to their daughter's ballet recital, that's what's important. And thankfully, we have technology these days that can help us. And I know that the pace of my practice and my workflow, Roman, moves so much faster than it even did 5 years ago. And that's thanks to technology, right? Like a few years ago, I would sit down and I would construct like a very formal email about something, in a response to something. And now, you know what I do? Sometimes I open up Loom or BombBomb, which are two platforms that I use to do video messages to people. And people love that, right? Like that's cool technology that you can use. It's verbal instructions, it's verbal requests. The only downside I have found to those right now are that they're not, the content within them are not searchable. So if you are, wanting to be able to search your email correspondence for certain things, you can't do that. But at the same time, I've had such amazing response from clients. They're like, oh my gosh, I love seeing your face. And I think I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I guess my point here is really, I love the fact that we can take advantage of technology now to make our businesses easier and more fun. And even though sometimes technology has been criticized for kind of taking away the human element, I think it's important to look out there and see what technologies are available to us to make our lives easier, to make our businesses move faster, to create that human element, and to also, make it so that we can actually get work done quicker, more efficiently, and put the work away when we're finished with it at the end of the day, so we can go and see our son's baseball game. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's kind of reprioritizing, as well as kind of the new economy where a lot of it is, people freelancing or working remotely or working different kind of schedules or, from home most of the time. And I think it's what works in someone's, situation. And I think people may still want that corner office, but you can still attain the same amount of success doing things for your own, or kind of finding the right fit that keeps you sane and living you the lifestyle that makes you happy.
Yes. And, I feel like we sort of have been groomed as a society. And maybe it's just the era that I've grown up in, but, you should want that corner office, right? Like, and you should work hard every day, and I think that the 40-hour work week is a bunch of BS at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like we can get so much more done in such a shorter amount of time. And it's okay to take a mental health Friday and use that as a way to stimulate your creative side. And I've never considered myself like a creative person, but I've been trying to integrate creative activities into my life more, because I'm convinced that will, stimulate me in other ways. So, I think it's important that people have that balance. And of course, I think it's hard too, because a lot of times, like as entrepreneurs, we like what we do, right? Like, and we like learning and we like challenges. And a lot of times we like working. And, kind of allowing that cutoff time, and saying, you know what, I'm going to take a step back from the technology, and I'm going to take a step back from looking at a computer screen, and I'm going to go and meditate, or I'm going to go and take a walk in the woods. And those types of things are so good for that other side of our brains. And fortunately, I think that people are becoming more aware of that, right? Like, I think that they're starting to appreciate that more.
Yeah, I agree. So what's one weakness that you may have had in the past that you turned into a strength and utilized today?
I think in the past, I've had trouble asking for help, and I've wanted to do everything myself. I think that's maybe a little bit of an entrepreneurial trait where I don't know if it's being afraid to ask for help, but it's more wanting to learn everything yourself. And when you are in that position where, you don't want to ask for help, you end up taking on too much, right? And you end up doing things that maybe you're not awesome at. You're not working in your zone of genius. And I think that it's important for people to understand and take a step back and say, well, wait a second here. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to outsource, right? It's okay for me to take a look at this whole big picture of my business or my practice or whatever it is that you're doing, and say, okay, I am really, really good at this one thing or two things, but I am not so good at these other things. And getting comfortable with asking for help for those things that you're not totally rad at, right? Or, outsourcing that, finding someone that can help you. And I haven't been great at that. And I feel like over just the last maybe 3 years, I've finally gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I can't do it all. Like, I need help. I need to ask for help in these certain areas. And I think that people should take a step back from whatever their business is, try to pull yourself back and look at your business from that 10,000 foot view, because a lot of times we can't see the forest because we're lost amongst the trees, right? But if you can take that step back, look at your business from a 10,000 foot perspective, write down all the different moving parts that you have in your business, all the different, what admin roles are going on, what business development roles are going on, what client services roles are going on, and figure out where are you, what are you amazing at? Where's your zone of genius? And then say, hey, I'm going to do this. And then take a look at these other roles in your business. And maybe you're not so rad at those roles. Consider and be okay with asking for help and letting someone else have the opportunity, pay someone else to do those things, right? Because there is someone else out there who likely, has that as their zone of genius. So help them, help you. And again, Roman, it took me a while to get to that point. And so if someone is just starting out with a business, they're going to want to do everything. They may not want to ask for help, but take a look at a business that is similar to yours and create that organizational chart. Take that step back, figure out where are you within your business that you can really do something amazing, because that's your, maybe you're the visionary in that space. So, and be ready to ask for help in those roles that you're not great at. It takes a while to get there, but I think the sooner you can do it, the better you are in your business in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to double down on your strengths. And I think a lot of people are taught, improve your weaknesses, but that just kind of, in an entrepreneurial sense, just slows you down. And having experts within your weaknesses to help you get further while you double down on your strengths can obviously go a long way.
Yes. And, you don't have to hire, because I think that people get a little scared of hiring, and I understand that. You don't have to hire for these other roles, right? Like you can hire, you can use independent contractors. And that's what I would suggest doing at first, if anything, or maybe attempt, just to make sure that a role for that is actually needed in your business, because sometimes it may not be, or maybe it's just a temporary role that can satisfy the task that needs to be finished. But, be ready to ask for help, double down on your strengths. That's, yeah, double down on your strengths. I like that. So like I said, I understand the fact that a lot of entrepreneurs are curious, and we like to learn, and we like to look at these other tasks that we could be doing, but really think about whether or not it makes sense. And if you're moving your business forward when you're putting yourself in those other roles, you may not be. You might actually be holding your business back. I
agree. So what's one piece of advice you have for the audience, either personal or professional?
So I think my biggest piece of advice, and when I give advice to people, it's usually because I've screwed something up in the past. I feel like the way that we learn the best is by our mistakes. And so this is a piece of advice from a mistake that I have made in the past. But my biggest mistake, I feel like, is that I didn't get a mentor sooner. Now, I had a mentor when I was in a law firm, and that mentor, actually I had a couple, and those mentors guided me from the perspective of, this is how you practice law. This is how you write a formal legal opinion on something. And they were great mentors. But when I went solo and I kind of started my own boutique practice, I didn't have a mentor. And I should have. I went for years without having a mentor. And that was a big mistake. I look back and realize I could have moved my practice forward a lot quicker if I'd had a mentor. And when I say mentor, it's usually someone who can help you take a step back. And it kind of goes back to what I mentioned a minute ago, to help you take that step back and ask questions about you and your business. And a lot of times when you are in your business, you're asking questions. You're just asking these questions from the perspective of being this little person in the forest. But it's really great to have someone, and I don't mean necessarily a coach, but I mean a mentor, someone who forces you to ask yourself these big picture questions about your business. Because a lot of times you might be missing important facets, or you might be missing important markets within your business that you're just not realizing, because you're in the, you're amongst the trees. I'm using this, forest and trees cliche thing that we hear so much of, but I can't even really properly state it. But, I think that one of the best things that you can do is get a mentor who's not employed by you, someone who is older and wiser than you, because there's a lot to be said for having a few gray hairs out there. And, I wish I would have done that sooner, honestly. I wish I would have done that as soon as I had started my solo practice. I wish I would have gotten a mentor, because I have one now, and it's just absolutely improved my practice, tenfold. So please get mentors. They're so important.
Yeah, I agree. A mentor, or someone that's kind of like an advisor, like you said, somebody that's been through, what you may be going through now, and somebody is where you may want to be in, X amount of years, 5-10 years, to really help you avoid some of those kind of pain points that you may experience if you go at it
alone.
Yes,
and I love that. Like, look for maybe a mentor, like you said, who is where you want to be, right? And they say that, like, your net worth is your network. So, get a mentor who you aspire to be. I think that is so important, and they don't have to be in your industry. And it might be better if they're not in your industry. right? Like someone who can take a look at it from totally different perspectives. I think that's important. My mentor that I have right now, he's not an attorney, and that's kind of one thing I love about him. He looks at it. He looks at my practice and guides me from having this very different perspective. And I think that's crucial. I think it's really crucial, and if you don't have like a single mentor that you can look to, like can you kind of develop your own personal board of advisors, right? I think that's so important. Just, you cannot work and succeed in a silo. And I look at my practice, where it was when I first started, and I was working a little bit in a silo and I didn't grow. I was very stagnant, and I didn't really start taking off until I kind of got out of my comfort zone and got that mentor. So do it. It is that's just the biggest piece of advice I can give to people. Get a mentor.
Yeah, I agree. So I really appreciate you stopping by today. Can you let the audience know how they can find you?
Yeah, well, Roman, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with your audience. And people can find me at theprivatelabellawyer.com, or if they have any questions about anything that I've talked about, they can reach out to me at Suzi, and that's Suzi at theprivatelabellawyer.com, or, of course, find me on that website. And if anyone wants a free checklist on brand protection tips, they can also find that on my website on the top bar. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again for stopping by.
This podcast has been brought to you by Nova Zora Digital. Find out how Nova Zora Digital can help your company grow online. Learn more at novazoradigital.com. Until next time, all you digital savages.